want to talk about the positives from our team and share ideas on how you celebrate or express gratitude to your team. And I know at the holidays, it was always a great time because we had a lot of clients bringing in gifts and expressing gratitude for the team. But I think as leaders, it's really important that you have ideas on how you do that all year long. And I think it's great to mix it up so that they don't start expecting it. I know I've talked to business owners, I don't understand. I bring them donuts every Friday, but they don't seem to care. And then they just expect the donuts. And then they get upset if I don't bring in the donuts. And so now it's no longer fun for me or fun for my team. So I think food always works well, I think, in our industry, but I think changing it up can be fun. And I know one of the most fun things we did, of course, I was in Houston, it was in the summertime, but one day we made milkshakes. And we actually had the milkshake maker and we had ice cream and we had milk and we were like made milkshakes. One morning we made breakfast tacos for our team and we actually cooked it and they had it and we encouraged them to come through the buffet line. So I think switching it up is a great idea. We did hot dogs and hamburgers outside for lunch one day, just kind of to mix it up. And again, so they don't get into the routine and expecting it. So those are some of the things that we did. And sometimes in the summer, I would just pick up, if I was out running errands, ice cream variety treats and bring in. I think it's important though, you do need to know if you have like team members who couldn't participate like in a milkshake that you had something for them so they wouldn't feel left out, which is why, Robin, we encourage when you onboard, part of your onboarding process is getting to know people's favorite likes and dislikes too.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people that have started using food trucks weren't really a big thing when I had my business, but 17 years ago. But yeah, pre-food truck era. Yeah, exactly. But I think food trucks have become really popular. And I know a lot of people that have rented food trucks. If you're in a shopping center, you might, and like I was located in a shopping center, so there were several other stores obviously in close proximity to me. So that might even be an opportunity to, depending on how many people you have to feed, that might be an opportunity to partner with some of the other stores that are next to you to bring that food truck in. But I know a lot of people have done that for breakfast, and I've seen people that have done that for during the midday, like you're talking about. And there's an amazing variety of food trucks.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy, all the different kind of food trucks. And so you could get one of them to come in and then just have your staff go out and order whatever they want from the food truck. And then obviously the food truck vendor would just bill you or you pay them at the end or whatever. But I think that's a really good idea. If you guys have tried any of these ideas, or if you have other ideas of things you've done as a way to celebrate your team, let us know. I know back in when I had my dog training business, we used to have an annual party that was obviously a party where we did Secret Santa. Usually we only picked like one person, so everybody wasn't buying a gift for everybody. And we did it as a whole white elephant exchange kind of thing. So we always did that. And then we always had my husband would always make some kind of mystery meat. So that was always the big reveal. Was we had other food, obviously, because not everybody wanted to eat meat and not everybody wanted to eat whatever the mystery meat was. But we would have things like ostrich, we had alligator, we had one year we had turducken, one year we had rattlesnake. Like we had all kinds of crazy foods. And then obviously we would provide other food as well. So it was a whole buffet thing. And I know this year that buffets or holiday parties were really not happening for the most part because of COVID, but I still think there's a lot of opportunity. I know some of the things that we've done with our team is just sending them gifts. Our team is all virtual, so trying to get them together to have something outside of a live event. When we have our live events, 90% of our team does get together. And then we do try to have an opportunity where we go out together at the end, or we celebrate in the beginning of the event together. But otherwise, it's really sending gifts and things through the mail, which is a little bit harder, but still, I think, a good way to show gratitude for them, which we try to do a couple of times a year.
I think if you're sending gifts, it's good to personalize them, include like a handwritten thank you note with the gift. And if you can personalize it, either something that they like, because you do know their likes and dislikes. So the gift's personalized, or It's something that has their name on it or personalized for their pets. Anything you can do to be more personal is valued more usually.
Yeah, so Rich, this is a great idea. During Halloween, they buy the staff dinner delivered and pumpkins and carving tools, and then they have a pumpkin carving party. Put the pumpkins online for our guests to vote on, which is cool too. And then
Yeah.
the winner gets a $50 gift certificate. So that's great because it does involve the guests and the staff to make it fun for everybody. So that's awesome. I saw a lot of people this year also doing the holiday or the Halloween costume contest, similar, where they take pictures of dogs as they come in, or a pet parent can send their picture of their dog in a costume, and then the pet parents can vote on which dog was the best, had the best costume. But so that's another kind of twist on that. I love this twist because it really does involve the staff a lot more. So that's an awesome idea.
Yeah,
And
getting your staff in
yeah.
front of your clients is always great because it makes them feel appreciated, and I love that. That's very clever. One thing, because the holidays were always so busy and crazy, we always did our kind of year-end event in early January when it was quieter so that
Oh yeah, that's when we always did our, that's a good point. That's when we always did ours too, because otherwise we were trying to juggle the busyness of
yeah.
the season, not just in the pet resort, but the busyness of the season for everybody's personal life. And you're trying to avoid like other parties. And yeah, so we always did ours in the middle of January where things had slowed down a bit, which was nice too. I'm going to go back to the form that you talked about. So one of the things that we do recommend when you onboard a new staff member, and if you don't do this now, just do it with everybody on your team as a, way to end the year or way to start the next year. But sending out a form, so obviously you get information like their address, and hopefully you get like information about their pets and probably emergency contact information if they have a spouse or partner. You get that information, name and phone number for that. But then we also do ask for information about their likes and dislikes. So favorite restaurant or favorite, place to get coffee or favorite movies, whatever. Just you can figure out whatever works best for your team. But the whole idea is you're trying to figure out what they really like. So my everyone knows I love Starbucks. So pretty much getting me a Starbucks gift card, I'm always going to be happy. But amazingly, there are people that would prefer to not go to Starbucks, or maybe they like Dunkin' Donuts better. And that just knowing that helps you to personalize that. There's some people that would totally love going to get a massage, and other people that are like, do not touch me. I don't want a massage. So you want to make sure you don't necessarily always just give the same thing to everybody. So being able to really tailor what you're giving them. There's times when you might give the whole team something, but there's a lot of times you may want to just celebrate somebody did something and you're just going to send them something very specific to what they like. And most people will totally forget that they filled out that form. And
Right.
then they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, how did you know I loved this place? This is our favorite restaurant. I can't believe this. It's so perfect." And then you're like, "Yeah, you told me that a year ago." But so it's a really good way to be able to really personalize those gifts to what the people like, which is great.
Any other ideas being shared?
I got actually from one of our vendors, and a lot of people were using this company, and I can't think of the name of the company, but is that tea company? Do you remember the name of that tea company? Do you know who I'm talking about? They're in Pinnacle.
Yeah.
Loose, it's hang gotta
Loose
Google
leaf,
it now.
loose
Something
leaf.
about, I think it's loose leaf tea, maybe.
I think it is.
It's a company of that sends teas, and you can, they're loose leash leafed loose leash. Loose, that tells you I'm in the dog industry.
That's right.
Loose leaf tea, and they were really unique flavors. And then it came with an immersion ball that you can put it in, and a little biscuit that came with it. So something like that, and then a personalized note. Something like that's unique, and maybe your staff has never had something like that, or just is a really unique gift. Any kind of, if you've got like a local company that makes some kind of special local delicatessen, or coffee or chocolate or whatever, if it's a local company, a lot of times they will work with you to create something special just for your team members too. So I would not rule that out either.
Yeah, I was surprised. Actually, we used to have keep a basket of chocolate and snacks and just could take it and give everybody a lift, or if one person did something, have them pick something out of the basket. But I did have one employee that didn't like chocolate, which I couldn't relate to, but and she really didn't like any kind of candy, but she liked gum. So I always made it a conscious effort to include gum in the basket. And again, it's so that you could always have something for everybody.
And then Rich also said something that is free, and this is a great one, is to feature an employee on social media with a photo and a few lines about them. It makes them feel special, and many clients comment with nice things that make the employees feel even more important, which I definitely think is a good thing. And I will tell you that some of this stuff, if you don't have a conscious system for it, it just won't happen. So that employee part is actually one of the things that's on our list. It's actually on my social media checklist that I give to our virtual assistant who does our social media. So every month I go through to figure out like what we're going to highlight that month. And then she does all the posting for us. But one of the things on there is we'll go through a period where we'll highlight all the staff and exactly what you're talking about, get some pictures from them. And it's really fun. Carrie Campbell, who's on our staff, she owns Dog Tired Up in Alaska. She used to be an opera singer. So she had a picture of her from her opera times and mentioned that. And people were like, holy smokes, that's amazing. And I put a picture of when I was in the Marine Corps. And so we found out a lot about each other just in doing that. And it's up to the employee to give you whatever they want to share. And then we did another round of the same type of thing, just highlighting the employees' pets. So that was a lot of fun too. But just have that built into your process. So you, like a couple times a month, a couple times a year, you're just being reminded, have we highlighted all our employees, and especially new employees, but also people that have been there for a while. Go back to them and make sure you're bringing out that, hey, this person's still here. If they have an anniversary with you, then they've been working with you a certain number of years. You could highlight that. If they do something really great, you could do that. If they go to a school or they take some continuing education, and it doesn't necessarily have to be work related. Maybe I've seen people where employees have graduated from college. And so obviously with the employee permission, you could highlight that they've been working part-time while going to school and they've graduated. So anything, I think, that you can highlight that, and that is totally free for you. And I do think it helps to build your whole team up and make sure that people understand who are taking care of the pets, which is important too. So John said, we have a Plinko game that we use to recognize someone when they do something great. Prizes are gift cards, beef jerky, candy, and sometimes the freebies we get from conferences. Oh, that's a really good idea. So take some of the bling that you get from conferences and vendors. Because I know sometimes I walk by the vendors and I'm like, I already have those. But I hadn't thought about keeping a little prize box, and you can, because a lot of times they're really good little trinkets to give away. So
Yeah.
that's a really good idea too.
Yeah, and then you can make a big deal, either have a prize box or a treasure chest. And I think Plinko games are fun. You can do prize wheels and have them spin a wheel to win something. I think you can make it fun and event. That's great. This is good. I love getting input.
And then Stephanie said, I did homemade gifts this year for the staff: soap, lotion, pet cologne, whipped sugar scrub, and lip balm. That's awesome.
It
So
is.
we find a ton of stuff on Etsy because I'm not very crafty at all. And so we find there's a ton of stuff on Etsy, and a lot of those Etsy vendors, if you email them, like we had little stress relief balls that we gave.
They're trying to do show and tell.
We had a whole bunch of scents to choose from. We picked lavender, and you could do a different color. We did blue because it's in our logo, and we had the word focus stamped on the top. But those were surprisingly really popular. A lot of those Etsy vendors, if you email them, they can tailor it to whatever. That person ended up putting a personalized label on them from the Dog Gurus. And then John also said, for birthdays, we do a cake they pick out, a birthday card signed by all, some money, and buy them lunch they pick from a local restaurant. I love that they're picking out the cake too.
Yeah.
So that's a really good idea. And I think it is, again, you have to build it into your system of knowing when everyone's birthdays are. But it's a relatively simple thing to do. And then just especially if your staff isn't huge, you can really celebrate that each time. And I do think that makes people feel recognized. And Kelly said, my employees love new logo apparel, which is funny. And we get that all the time too. So I love to surprise. That's a good idea. I love to surprise them here and there with something new. over the summer. I did drawstring bags and water bottles. For the holidays, I got them pom pom beanies. That's a great idea. I think anytime you can do something that's totally out of off of any kind of a schedule, I think is fun. So surprising them with something I think is a great idea. Where you get your logo apparel done. We get ours from Lands End. We don't have any kind of account with them as an affiliate. We're just saying the reason that we like them is obviously their products are good, but you can also order minimum quantities. Like you don't have to have 6 of something or 5 of something. You can go in there and just order one of this, one of that, one of this, and they can be different colors or whatever. So we like them for that. And then when I was in Virginia, I used to have a local embroidery company, so I could buy whatever I wanted and bring stuff to them and they would embroider it. And that worked out really well too. Rich said official letter of commendation. This is a good idea. This is like from my military times right here. Um, but I've never thought about doing it for a pet business, but a letter of commendation when an employee goes above and beyond. I've had employees ask me for copies of those to include in college applications, which is, yeah, that's a great idea. And those would definitely be good for the younger people who are still in college or are trying to apply for something like that. So that's a really good idea too. And I think that would be something they're not used to getting as well.
We've got a lot of creative ways to express gratitude. Has anybody done like a wall of fame? Or I know a lot of people will post certificates for courses and certifications people get, which I think is awesome, and include that in a tour route. But I also do know that you can have a shout out wall where employees can do like a kudos to other employees.
Yeah, and I think we used to do that where they could just post comments and reward each other. So you're basically encouraging them to praise one another, which I think is always a good thing.
I guess that could be a Slack channel now. I'm like getting so out of touch.
That is true. John said we'll post and share 5-star review comments and special thank you emails from customers and talk it up. And this is really, I want to go back to this in a second, but a huge thank to all the staff and recognition it takes for all of us to create these moments. So I do think that you have to be really intentional about sharing those posts and comments and especially emails, because sometimes the only person that will get the email is you as the business owner, or maybe it comes to your support desk and your whoever is answering your emails might see it. And you have to be really conscious to make sure your whole team does see that, because otherwise they never know. They, unless it's a public thing like on Google or Facebook or whatever, but when it comes to you privately, they may never see that. And so I do think making sure you're very intentional when someone tells you that your company has done a great job about whatever XYZ, that you share that with your team. So that's a really good one, John. I think everyone needs to be aware of that, because it's so easy for us. It's really easy for me to email stuff to Susan because we work together all the time. But then I have to go, oh wait, the team needs to see this because this was a team effort. Obviously, if it's something about how the dog gurus handled something, and 90% of the time, it's actually something that my team has done, not always something that me and Susan specifically did, other than we obviously own the company. But if it's something about how great the support was, or they really liked how they got something handled, or usually that's something that happened behind the scenes. So you have to make sure that your team knows that, because that positive reinforcement is really for them as well. So I think that's a really important one to remember.
We've had, I know some of you guys have been on our Ritz Carlton sessions about customer care and all. And a lot of this is employees that feel taken care of will take better care of our customers, which then is better for business. And one thing they did talk about was like in the daily huddles that you have, is always having something positive to share. And reviews can be that, email stories, but it's always good to start a team meeting, department meeting, a daily huddle with something good. It kind of sets the tone, and it makes it easier to say if there are things that need to be really watched or maybe done a little bit better. It's taken as, I guess, better if you've shared something positive. And it helps with, if you're wanting to have a positive work together team culture, that has to come from the top and the leadership.
Yeah, and I would say the first thing to ask, this is what I was guilty of, is that I used to never have meetings regularly unless there was a problem. And because, of course, when there's a problem, we're going to call everyone together and make sure we can resolve the problem. And I didn't realize. So ask yourself this: if you were to go out into your team, or you were to send an email to your team, or you were whatever communication team that your team uses, Slack, email, whatever. If you were to post on there, hey, everybody meet in my office for a quick meeting tomorrow at 6 or whatever. If you were to do that, would your staff say, oh, this is going to be awesome, something new? Or would they go, crap, we're in trouble? If
Mhm.
the response is you think they would go, crap, we're in trouble, then I would just look at possibly changing your meeting culture to be a little bit different, and making sure that you are having regular meetings just to celebrate with them, and not only just to convey bad news. And I do think it's entrepreneurs. I feel like we're very much, let's get the job done, let's move on. We don't, a lot of times we don't take time to celebrate, and
Yep.
we're very focused, not in terms of beating our people up, although that sometimes happens, but that was never my intent. It was just more of my intent of let's get better, let's get better, let's
Mhm.
get better. But then the culture then became more of it's never good enough. So that's the other side of that, constantly let's get better. Let's get better is a great way to live and a great way to run your business, but you really have to balance that, because it can really easily turn into where it's never good enough, especially if you don't celebrate. So if you were to call a meeting and your team would be like, "Oh, we're in trouble," then I would say you probably need to have more frequent, shorter meetings like those huddles, and where you're just doing something to celebrate and recognize the good stuff that people have done. So I would definitely take that to heart as going into the next year. And I don't think you can ever give out too much praise.
I think we need to think about praise for our team just like we do for our dogs. You really can't overpraise the good behaviors you want, and it's much easier to get more of that than it is to try to correct the behaviors you don't want.
Yeah, and I do think it does set the tone for one of the biggest challenges that people come to us with, is in terms of changing their culture, is just too much negativity. And of course, a lot of times the people that come to us that say my staff is too negative, they're like, my staff, they suck. And then they're 100% negative in sharing their views of the staff. And so, ironically, you got to look at yourself too. If your attitude is very much in terms of venting and negativity, and your pet peeves or your clients just aren't very good, or your staff is just a bunch of people that don't have a good work ethic, if that's your attitude, that's going to come across to them. So you really want to make everything as positive as possible. I'm not saying be a nonstop cheerleader when they really need coaching, but there's probably more cheerleading needed than most people do. And there's a lot of coaching that's needed as well, but I think you need both. You can't just be disciplinarian, and you can't just be constantly coaching and training. You have to have that cheerleader element in there also. And that's really probably, I would say, what gets left off the most.
Yeah.
Isn't Doesn't have its fair share of time in the sun, so to speak. So I really think really making a list of looking at how often are you recognizing and praising your staff can become really eye opening, especially if there's not a lot of, if you start to list all those times and there's not a lot in your list.
And I think we've talked a lot about doing group team recognition, and which is really important, but also sometimes there needs to be individual recognition for those real rock stars, the people that have gone above and beyond. And some people don't want that to be done publicly, but if you do it with them privately, one on one, or them and their manager and you, it's important that they know that they're appreciated. And I know that this year there have been some staff that have gone above and beyond what you guys expected, and I know we've had that on our team. And so it's a great time at the end of the year to think about, have I expressed my gratitude to those key people? I would just die if they walked into my office and gave me a resignation notice. And what have I done to make them know how valuable they are to my team? And that may need to be done in private.
Yeah, and I don't think this is always connected to money either. I don't think you
Yeah.
always have to give somebody something that cost you money to make. Just I forget who it was said that they made some gifts themselves, which is awesome. I think a lot of employees just would thrive on more positive comments throughout the year and just praise in general for the stuff that they're doing, just acknowledgement that they've done a good job. And I feel like this year with the COVID, I think there have been a lot of people that have stepped up. And then I also think there's so much stress that it still might be hard to remember to acknowledge them. If everything else fell apart and you're like, thank gosh for that one employee, but you're totally stressed out and you forget to tell that one employee they're awesome. So just make sure you go back and look at that too. And I really think I'm a big believer in gratitude journals anyway. I'm telling you right now, if you, the beginning of every day, you just think about or write down, writing it down is even better. 5 things you're grateful for. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be about your business. It could be anything. That will change your outlook. You just can't be really grateful for a ton of stuff and then be really angry and pissy at the same time. That's just been my experience. I feel like consciously being grateful for things is a way to increase your own positivity. And then I think that comes out to your employees as well. But definitely making sure you're looking beyond the stress of this year to see that there were some amazing things that came out of this year, even though there was a whole bunch of stuff we don't want to ever see again. But I also think there's some, and we talked a little bit about that on our last Facebook Live, but making sure that if you have employees that fall in that category, that you're rewarding them. Shayna said before COVID happened, we had once a month hangouts, whether it's bowling, dinner, fun and personal, which I think my staff used to do that as well. And I think that nothing helps build a better work environment, a work team, than just getting to know your team members outside of work. So anything you can do to facilitate that. We generally did it quarterly, but we had groups that would sometimes go do their own thing, obviously became friends, but I think all of that is great.
Yeah, and I think what you can do is like going into 2021, you can talk about when the vaccines and people are ready, you're going to get this started again. What's going to be the first thing we do? And so you can really start to build that excitement and looking forward to getting back into that.
And then John said, even without promotional opportunities, we try to find growth opportunities to recognize people that can grow new skills. Enrichment for dogs, become our trainers for bass, whatever. So the good thing, the other thing about having a really good relationship with your team members is you may find out that what would really be meaningful to them would be to take some kind of an online course. It might have nothing to do with your business, but maybe it's like a $69 course to learn how to use Canva or something. And that if that's something your team, like you get to know somebody and they're like, I really want to do this course, but I don't want to spend the money on it. That's something you might be able to reward them with. It might not have anything to do with your business, or maybe it does have something to do with your business. I would budget a line item and just put an amount in there that says this is just going to be an amount of money we put towards, whether you want to call it recognition of your staff. You could also have a separate pot that's continuing education, where that is specifically to get them better at their job and help them, or an area where you might want to let them grow into a new career field, which kind of sounds like what John was talking about. But I think those are both opportunities for rewarding your staff with things that might be meaningful to them. Another way is just to let them, I had one staff member that loved Comic-Con and just telling her she could have off to go to that Comic-Con, and I was going to pay her for those days, was huge to her. Like, you would have thought I gave her $1,000. Something like that. It's just knowing what is important to your team and what really is important to them as individuals, and not necessarily always doing what is also going to benefit your specific business. Because the bottom line is, if your staff is happy, your business is going to benefit anyway. Yeah. And that was one of the, like Susan said, one of the Ritz-Carlton Leadership Center principles was that if your staff is well taken care of, they're going to take care of your employees, your clients.
And I think oftentimes I know, like my supervisors and managers, some of them were the hardest working people in the business. And I think it was hard to get them to take time off and get away. And doing something like Robin said, paying for them to go to something that really turns them on, is going to be so memorable for them and help them stick with you. And so you don't have to do that for everybody, but for those people that you would just die if they came in and gave their resignation, you need to get to know them personally and what would really charge them up and see what you can do. And it doesn't always cost that much money, especially if you consider the cost of your turnover.
My goal for everyone is really to end this year and start the new year with not just a list of everything we've talked about in the last 40 minutes, but take that list and maybe you have other ideas and just come up with a way to actually implement it. Because I think too often we go to conferences or listen to a webinar or listen to Facebook Live like we're doing now, and we make a list of things and then it just gets put somewhere and we don't ever do anything with it. So the goal is to take the ideas and concepts that we've talked about, and hopefully you have a list of them, but then sit down and figure out how you're going to implement them. So if you're going to reward your staff, do you have money to do that? Maybe you set aside a line item in your budget to do that. If you're going to celebrate birthdays, do you even know everybody's birthday? And there's literally something that pops up on the first of every month that tells me to look for birthdays. Because if I don't, I know I won't remember. So what's your process to know you're actually going to celebrate birthdays or send a card or do a birthday cake or whatever it is? So you actually want to spend the rest of this month figuring out the process for whatever team building efforts you're going to do, and so that you can implement them in the beginning of the year. Because I will just tell you, they're not going to happen unless you are conscious about it. If it means at the beginning of every meeting you're going to talk about something positive or a positive review you got or whatever, I would create an agenda that the very first thing is something positive. So it's literally, you can't forget about it, and it can't become overtaken by all of the day-to-day craziness that happens in at your business, because it will.